central idea is like coming up. So the feeling of coming up and out. So rather than sinking into the feet, you feel like kind of floating out of the feet, like the horse or something is floating that you're sitting on, bringing your mind up through the body and then out into the space around you. Without tensing up and coming off the ground, so you're still relaxed on the ground. And this feeling of rising mind up out of the feet. So the feeling is that you can then walk. So it's similar to walking on thin ice, that feeling of up, or the moon on the head, light and free from being stuck on the ground. So one of the images Bret has is like a fountain, so the water rising up through the body and then spreading out or opening out. And he uses that image of water coming up, but you could use any image. So like as if there's hose pipes under your feet and the water rises up the legs, up the body. It's also opening and filling the body and can come all the way up to the top of the head. So it's just an alternative version of stuff we've done before when we're sort of releasing and opening. So you could open the foot. With the foot, Bret has the image of, or the idea of bring the mind to the top of the foot, like top of your hand. So you're not just on the ground, you're opening the foot this way by bringing the mind to the top of the foot. If that's weird or difficult to imagine you've got your shoelaces tight or something, you feel the sensation on top of your foot. Then coming through the foot, through the ankle, up through the calves, through the knees, thighs to the hips. With the hips, you can imagine sort of lifting up here slightly. I know we talk about sitting, but imagine also opening the hip this way. There's another teacher from Denmark that I've met who did this. He said, imagine sort of stretching open the hip up the way. We'll talk about the qua folding and opening, but also opening this way. So then up through the abdomen, you've got this kind of movement, rising up the front or relaxing the back. And the feeling in the chest and shoulders, again, not heavy, just allowing the shoulder to kind of float slightly. All the same stuff we've talked about before. Up to the crown of the head, moon on the head. So at the beginning of the form, when we were practicing it, there was a feeling of like the water floating your arms up from underneath. You can just let them come back down. So imagine the water or this opening is rising up through the legs and it floats the arms up from underneath. It also, rather than think of out through the fingers, you can think of underneath the fingers for the hands to come up. So that last movement can be from underneath the fingers. So one of the themes was whatever the movement is, rather than do it from the front of the movement, come behind the movement and feel like it's coming from behind. So when the hand's coming up, feel it's underneath the hand, or the arm's coming up, feel it's from underneath. The body's coming up, you feel it's underneath, like the pelvic floor or the horse or something lifting you up. So for the opening of the form, you've got underneath. Then, because the hand's coming back, rather than think from the wrist, imagine something's pushing your fingers in. Or the elbows are dropping, but it could be something on top of your elbow and something on your finger that brings the arms in. Then on the down, rather than, you can think of the palms pushing in water, but imagine there's another hand or something resting on your hand that lowers the hand down from above. While you're doing that with the arms, you still stay focused on up through the legs and the space between the legs, up through the torso, and the mind kind of surrounding the space around you. So don't just focus on the arms, feel the whole thing. But look for that sort of opposite side. So underneath, then from in front, and maybe above the elbows, above the hands, and then back to just the whole body. You can do that as a standing practice, just feeling the water rising up through the legs or the hose pipes. Or you imagine just opening, like a hose pipe opening, or the fist releasing like we do. So it's like this rising and opening feeling. Yeah, there's another idea that kind of relates to that part of the movement. So when we're doing pushing or forward movement, you can just have a feeling of like slightly further away. Or if you imagine I'm shining a torch or something towards that wall, or like it's, say I'm looking at this dot or something. So I'll be in the body and in this centered feeling. And if the hand's going out, you could imagine something connects from my hand to that dot. And it's just a line of energy or a line of light or an expression that's straight along, or like just a straight line. But as I do that, I just let the hand go there, or partly there, but there's something else goes beyond the hand. So the intention goes out to there, but the hand might only move slightly. And I don't get pulled into that. I feel I'm still rising and opening in all directions as the hand just sort of expresses in that direction. So if we're doing anything in the form like that, you can have the mind behind, or the impetus comes from behind, but there's something that goes out as well. But it continues on as like a stream of awareness. Meanwhile, still maintaining this kind of six directions feeling or opening. So I think that relates to the idea of the fair lady's hand or the beautiful lady's hand. So it's not like tense in the arm, it's like a light feeling and a energy or something that's in the intention. So remember, Wee Ki Jin would speak about when you're doing pushing, you sort of look behind the person, or you look further away, or whatever. It's a similar idea. So with Bret, when we were doing push hands, like say you've kind of got the first yield, he would call it, when you sort of affect the partner, or the returning force comes into them. Rather than push their body, you just think of like extending the arm along that sort of energetic line, whatever it is. But you don't even have to straighten it, it's just a movement through. It's going through. So that's maybe a bit like this movement here, or anytime the hands move forward, you have that feeling. So you could connect maybe to the wall, like the hands touching the wall or something in front of you. But it's going through the space, so it's not stopping. So if we tried that in, say, this sequence, you try and stay up and out all around you, and the hands are just going through the space, and the intention can be going through. for any movement. With that feeling, it's like the mind doesn't stop at the point of the end of the movement. The mind keeps moving. Another aspect of the thinking of the opposite side, so say we're doing this forward and back movement, rather than think of going forward, imagine someone pushing you forward from behind, so it's the force is behind you, or like the wall behind you pushes you forward. Then to go backwards, you don't push back, you feel like there's a force moving you back, or the wall, the space in front of you is moving you back, the space behind you moving you forward. Just get that feeling. Wherever it is on your back, it might be the tail, back of the head, or the whole of the back, behind the legs. So combine that with the feeling of rising and opening. So you're open and light and just kind of floating forward and back by being as if you're just set in motion. From an outside force. And see if you feel less stuck. So all of this is a way to change the way you move, change the feeling, like you get less stuck in the movement, less stuck in the body. You can also try that with this rotational movement. So in the Mr. Lee exercises, is that kind of movement, as if your arms are moving, as if the hands are turning the pelvis. You could feel like the hand is like turning your legs, turning your hips. And just get that feeling of the hands turn the waist, the hands turn the hips. Something outside of you is turning. And combine that with the up and the forward and back, the wind behind you or the wind in front of you, and feel as if there's a pair of hands moving you in the rotation and pushing you or something from the forward and back. So it's like an external adjustment to your movement from outside, from underneath. You can try that with some hand movement. It could be Peng Lu Jian or like the 4 directions. So yeah, that feeling of the body being moved from outside. So the focus with Bret is like in this, opening this space here. So the space in the floor underneath the center, the kind of horse thing. So rather than go into the foot, try and go into that space let that space open out. And it's like that space is supporting me from underneath. The same way as something can be moving me from the sides or the front or the back. This is kind of holding me or resting, floating. So just try and get that feeling of not going into the foot. You could be in both feet and in the space in between. Same when you move, try and keep that feeling of it's the space in between that's moving you or that's moving. So it'll be the same in this movement. So my tendency is still, partly because I'm teaching, to go like 100, 0. So all of my mind goes there. But rather think, drop into the space in between, even though the weight's shifting back, the mind or the whatever it is, E and things, is in this space. Then you can try something pushes you into the front foot as you're supported up from that space. Something turns you, that space opens up for you to sit into, and something is turning you, and the space between the legs is maintained as a feeling as you're being sort of turned. So this is like that exercise. Rather than just go down into this leg, although that's a way to think about it, you could think you're still in the space in between the legs as well. And something is moving you, something supporting you up. There's the sides, there's the front, there's the back, there's above. Above and below are connected. So same in ward off, roll back, press, push. Feel that you're being moved around rather than you're moving. Something's moving you. And you're floating. So something's moving you horizontally, but you're floating upwards. And that you're involved in this center space underneath, or you're held up from underneath. So if you practice that enough, it should make the whole thing feel different. But allow it to take time. So it might take time for you to feel, wait for the thing from outside to move you. So yeah, one of the partner exercises was you're just basically pushing, person standing side on. You touch on their shoulder and abdomen or something, and you just basically move forward. But it's like I'm holding a ball, the arms don't change too much. But you can still have that feeling of something from outside is moving you forward. It's more or less the same as the fifth loosening exercise, but we're not doing the up and down. We're just thinking of up and out, or up and horizontal. And the thing in the arms there is just like holding a light balloon. So there's like very light touch in the fingers, not pushing from the hands. Not really pushing from the legs either, just moving. An emphasis on this part of what I'm talking about, I call it the horse stance, but it's the space. But then there's also this feeling of the space inside the legs and the space around. So this wider space as well. So just in the lower body, you've got some of the ideas that I've expressed as this springiness. So that's up through the legs, where you can imagine the hose pipes. But then imagine there's something in between the legs as well, like a spring or a flying horse that's floating you up. You're sitting down, but it's kind of lifting you up. So your buoyancy is the down and the up. So sitting and floating. Not just on the individual legs and the space between. Then we have like Chen Manqing's image of the standing, wading in the stream. So the water is surrounding you as well. And that could be partly what's shifting your weight is the current, or you just feel the connection to this wider. So there's the horse or the ball here, but then there's something wider. And you can see this square in the room that I'm standing on. So here, I'm sort of in the middle of this square or rectangle. I could try and feel my awareness spreads all over that area. Or this is like the center of the room for me here. So I could feel the entire floor space is, my mind is up touching the whole floor. I remember having a feeling of that once years ago, about 10, 12 years ago. We were doing a sort of grounding exercise. And the guy was pushing on me, and I just felt like all of the ground around me was receiving the force, like a big area, like 15 square meters of floor or ground was just easily neutralizing the force, and the mind just went there. So the footprint is much wider than your feet, if that makes sense. So you feel the carpet or the flooring or whatever you're standing on is your base. And you're not trying to connect to the ground in that sense. It's more like your mind is wider. And Bret's thing about the ground is it's more like a ball underwater, or it has buoyancy on the floor. The image I got from Mark in the yoga training was like standing on stilts. So you feel like you're standing above the floor and that you're up rather than standing in to like a post dug into the ground. So it's more like you're standing on top of the posts off the ground. So that helps me feel more up, not down. But I'm still buoyancy or up and down connected. Spread the mind around, use the space in between, feel the upward connection, the feeling that you can walk or not be stuck on the ground. So there's a wider thing, there's an inner thing. There's the fronts of the legs, the sides of the legs, the back of the legs, the inside legs, top of the feet. And that feeling generally rising up into the body as well, up to the crown of the head. So again, if you're doing the form, you could try and capture that feeling somehow or look for that feeling. There's quite a few images there. Might be take one of them, like the whole floor space is much wider. Your footprint is as wide as the room. Or you use the floating horse to move you around from inside the legs, where you feel the current pushing against the legs. You feel the top of the feet. You feel the walking on thin ice. You could feel the fullness or the opening inside the legs. So it doesn't matter what exercise you're doing, you just look for that feeling. So it's kind of universal to any posture. That's the basis of the rising up or the opening out from the ground. You just continue that up through the body. So to the crown of the head, so the moon and the head will help you find the top of that. In terms of the heaven and earth thing, you can connecting to the ground and the ball on the head. So that's like Chen Manching's 8 methods, part 1 and 2. You're connected up and down. And doing the form a little bit more free form is the feeling of not being stuck in the ground. So just being lighter, that you're able to kind of walk around. So Bret was saying generally with people when he's teaching, there's 2 things that help. One is that bring the mind up and out and expand and open. The other is to feel like there's a solid wall beside you or behind you. So if I'm standing this way, like there's the wall, so the wall is right there. And it's right wherever you are. It's not like 3 inches away, it's touching wherever you are. So if I'm here, the wall is touching right there. It can even be in front of me. So this is like the 6 directions, but it's making a connection to solid surface. John Martin, solid air. So the wall or the solid air is like wherever, in partner work, it might be the opposite side to where the force is coming. So someone's pushing you straight, the wall's behind you and it's solid, it's immediately there like concrete. And the mind has to have faith that it's there and it's solid and it's strong. So not looking, grasping or worrying about it. It's just there, same as that one there. Same as the ground is there, the wall's there. And you have to kind of work out where's the wall, or where's the partner's force going through the wall, sideways, backwards, might be in front of you. That was one of the main themes. It's a bit like holding the ball as well. So that's like the solid ball, or you're touching the wall to the side. So when we do this 6 direction stuff, that's the side walls. This is the back wall and then the front wall. You could also find diagonal ones. And as much as you can sort of lean into them like a door moving, you can also go, it's just there, immediately there. It's immediately there. It's immediately at the side. It's immediately at the front. It surrounds the legs and the torso. They can be on the arms, can be on the fingers. Could even be behind your head or on your forehead, on the side of your head. That feeling. So it makes you sort of immovable, is the sense. Or it's impenetrable. So that's the space. Wolf Lowenthal said at one of his workshops, he talked about the air like water, but he said make the air like iron. So the air is like iron, which means it's the solid wall. So this is the mind intention that's creating that. And it's especially in partner work, but you could start to work on it in solo practice. And from my own experience of the workshop, it was like I had to make that 100%. There was no give in the wall. And it wasn't like the wind pushing the sail. It's like much more solid, much more strong. But it's the same feeling as the wind, but it's more like a tornado. It's like the wind is solid. Being able to do that with the mind is important. Otherwise, you just kind of push through it. It doesn't really work. But that wall is also, when we're pushing forward, it's that feeling of that wall that pushes behind you is one way to play with it. So when you've got a forward push, put the wall behind you, and it's the power coming from behind that allows the hand to just go through because the wall is strong. And there's a weird thing about some of this. When it works, it feels like that wasn't real. So that's the wall. So it's for receiving, returning, and issuing. It's what you call neutralizing. In Chinese, they talk about hua. So you neutralize the force. But you have to have this kind of strong mental determination that the wall is hard. Paul Rogers had a phrase saying that the body's soft, but the mind is hard, which doesn't sound like Tai Chi, but that feeling of the wall is like the mind is hard, it's not going to move. So you have to have a sort of confidence or faith in the image and in the effect of the image, not a vague sense of it. So that's like a decision you make. You just go, I'm deciding now that that's not going to move. The wall's there. So there's an element of you're sort of tricking your own mind to do things and to circumvent habits of like resisting or collapsing. And also keeping the mind up and out, expansive, so you don't get caught into the force or caught in your own body or caught in the partner's body. The mind stays open, staying spacious and not having a sort of fixed agenda. So that feeling I was talking about, it feels like you didn't do the thing, like there was no force. So I think there's a teacher called Sam Tam spoke about developing no force or the force of non-force or something like that. And Sam Tam, if you search for him on YouTube, you'll see him pushing people and it looks very casual. So that's the feeling of when it works, it feels like you didn't do anything. It's slightly strange because you don't, if you're getting the feedback, somebody said that was strong, but for you, it didn't feel like anything. So again, looking at the beginning of the form, one of Bret's images was to feel like something is like water spreading, like a splash on the ground or a puddle. Or there's a river or something between your feet. Maybe you're standing on either side of the river and it's on the ground, but it's also this space rising. So it's just another image that might help. So you feel spreading or water and you're moving between the banks of the river. So wherever you are, you can keep the mind aware of that river or the spreading of the mind on the ground. You can try that in the form. Anytime you step, it's like you're standing on either side of the river. And somehow the river is moving, the energy is flowing between there. So you're never on one leg. The mind is never fully in one leg. The weight can be on one leg, but the mind is never. Which is one of the main confusion points in Tai Chi when they say, shift the weight, we shift the mind, but then what we're trying to do here is expand the mind, shift the weight. You could imagine something similar between the hands, like there's a connection. There's always a connection between the hands. Like another river or just some other space connection or energy connection. Between the hands and the feet, between the hands and the hands. So then there's an image around the pelvis, which we touched on before, which is like a rubber ring thing, like a whatever they call it for lifeguards. So you could imagine like you've not got any legs and he's just sitting on the water. And Bret's way of saying it was like you dip your hips into the water, but like this is a boat or something, it's just floating in the water. You forget about the legs, come up out of the legs, and just be like your torso from the pelvis up. And pelvis is like the boat floating in the water. And it just stays floating at all times and moves around. So that gives you this sort of buoyancy in the pelvis, both hips, all the time. Another image I had was like if you're holding a baby or something underneath, or holding something, imagine there's a giant or something you're sitting on their hand and they're moving you around. So something holding you from underneath, floating you. A more stretchy one is like the pelvic floor. So Bret's image was like pull your trousers up. So there's this kind of pelvic floor rising. If you find it hard to float, so you need to maybe engage more up. But then with the floating, it's like something else is doing it for you, the water or the river. So the river between the feet is now floating your pelvis. And all of this is making things less heavy. I forgot Bret used that image of a puffer fish because Bret likes fishing. So the puffer fish is like the opening on the inside. So everything's going, expands. Legs, torso, arms. So that's the feeling of the expansive puffer fish. So it's just one element of the body expanding, opening. Fullness. So we're trying to create fullness. So that's like the balloon man, or this one, that was my version of it, the snowman. So that pufferfish fullness on the inside. So yeah, we have this thing, this turning, and that comes into the steps. So here we turn, so there's a constant turning around the legs, the way Bret is explaining it. So that would apply in sort of ward off stepping or any of the stepping. And he's always saying turn sooner. But it requires you to be floating to do that comfortably. Otherwise, if you're in the ground and you're trying to turn, you're twisting your leg. So come up and then you get the freedom to turn sooner or more constantly. So that's different from, say, going like this, sit in, then turn. We've practiced that, but that's useful. But it's not, that's a kind of sideways, or there's no rotation at that point. The rotation's here. No rotation, rotation. So with Bret, it's more like rotate already, keep a constant rotation. So there's already a rotation. So you could try that, the same exercise that we did, which was this from this Ben Low video, but feeling the rotation is constant. So it's already rotating. But you're feeling the kind of floating as well. So that could be ward off to ward off. Sometimes you'll do it and it feels like I just feel stuck in one leg. It doesn't feel like what we're trying to do. So just allow your mind to come back into it. If it feels like it's lost it, come back. So yeah, through using the space to move you, it's almost like a wind chime or something, like there's no stopping. So it's not like a mechanical mechanism. It's more like something's just constantly moving. there's a constant turning, constant floating, and it's coming from kind of outside. So imagine the wind is moving your body into the shapes. But as Bret said, it's not too floaty to the point where you're off your center. You're still maintaining your center. But allow this outer movement to float and turn you. Don't drop the weight into the feet. Feel the up from the feet. It might make your posture high for a while. You might be like up here on stilts, but then you still should be able to do it in deeper posture. It's harder. Okay, so a lot of the partner work is about the partner pushing themselves off. So there's like the force comes in and then it returns, or it goes through and back. So when we are receiving and returning, the hand that's on the partner, there's an idea that it stays, say this is the force returning, then I stay behind it, or at least at the same time as it. So they're pushing in, the force returns out, and I kind of follow it rather than go past it. So Bret would say, don't break the surface, which means that's the returning force, and I try and do more. So that's, you're taking more than you've got. And when you do that, they can return that back to you. So, but when you're returning their force, it's like they can't do anything about it because it's them that's doing it. When I give them the force, they can send it back to me. So that's staying behind the force as it sort of comes in and returns. So you maybe need a partner to feel that and not break the surface, so you don't go past. There's also an idea of not connecting and following your partner. You allow them to come to you, and then you just do whatever you want, and they will follow you. You don't try and follow them, but you are listening to their force, following behind the force. Like when their force comes in, if that's the force coming in, you try not to feel it stuck at the surface. You allow it to go sort of through you, or you imagine another wall behind. So if they're pushing here, I'll feel that their push is going right through me into the far wall, and it comes back from behind there as well, so it doesn't get stuck on me. But yeah, it's all about coming up. It's the 6 directions, heaven and earth, the walls around you, the mind out of the ground or deeper beyond the ground, the force returning to the partner. And so you have to have a lot of patience or just commitment to that concept and not do stuff. It can be frustrating initially, but it's like you're just being a bit more observant and neutral, but you are cultivating something that's active at the same time. So you're not just doing nothing and going like a noodle. So as you're doing the form or the exercises, you can constantly work on the feeling of the 6 directions, or however you want to call it, and the opening and the sort of sense of being moved around by the walls or being moved around by the wind. And the force that's moving you is like a bigger force from behind you or bigger force from in front of you, which creates a bigger force when you do the partner work. From the opposite side, so if you're pushing down, it's a big force from above. If you're floating up, it's a big force from underneath. If it's going sideways, it's a big force from the opposite side. If it's rotating, it's like a big carousel moving. The whole room is turning. You've got the whole floor space moving. So there's a bigger floor, bigger space, forward and back, from way behind you and way in front of you. So that creates an opening and a larger conduit or something for the forces.